this morning to discuss Srimad Bhagavatam, Pramanam Amalam, Puranam Amalam. So we'll do a quick Jai Radha Madhav. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihar Radha Madhava Kunja Bihar Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradha Vijana Vallabha Girivaradha Yashodanandana Prajajana Yashodanandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Yamunatira Vanachari Krishna Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Shri Radha Muralidhar, Shri Gaurachandra, Shri Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So today we'll be discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 20, text 39, 40 and 41. So let me share my screen.
Could you repeat that, please? 10:29.
10, 20, 39. Yeah, 10, 20, 39 is the. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki krishnaya vasudevaya devaki nandanaya cha nanda gopakumaraya govindaya namo namaha. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 20, Text 39. Shanai Shanairjahu Pankam Sthalanyamam cha virudha Yathaham Mamatam Dhiraha Sharirādishva Anatmasu. Shanai Shanairjahu Pankam Sthalanyamam cha virudha Yathaham Mamatam Dhiraha Sharirādishvat Anatmasu. Translation. Gradually, the different areas of land gave up their muddy condition and the plants grew past their unripe stage, in the same way that sober sages give up egotism and possessiveness. These are based on things different from the real self, namely the material body and its byproducts. Purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The word Adishu in this verse indicates the byproducts of the body, such as children, home, and wealth. Text 40. Nishchalambur abhut tushnim samudraha sharad agame atmanyuparate samyan munir view paratagamaha.
Could you read the translation of the first verse? You speak very quickly and I couldn't get it.
Sorry, yes, sure. Gradually, the different areas of land gave up their muddy condition, and the plants grew past their unripe stage, in the same way that sober sages give up egotism and possessiveness. These are based on things different from the real self, namely the material body and its byproducts. This was 39, and I'll read 40 now. Okay, I'll just read the verse once more. Nishchalambur abhut tushnim samudraha sharad agame atmanya uparate samyan munir vyu paratagamaha. Translation. With the arrival of autumn, the ocean and lakes became silent, their water still, just like a sage who has desisted from all material activities and given up his recitation of Vedic mantras. Purport. One recites ordinary Vedic mantras for material promotion, mystic power, and impersonal salvation. But when a sage is completely free of personal desire, he vibrates the transcendental glories of the Supreme Lord exclusively. And then finally 41. Kedarebhyastva grihinan karshaka dridad setubhi yatha pranai shravaj jnanam tannirodhena yoginaha. Kedarebhyastva grihinan karshaka dridha setubhi yatha pranai shravaj jnanam tannirodhena yoginaha. Translation. In the same way that the practitioners of yoga bring their senses under control to check their consciousness from flowing out through the agitated senses, the farmers erected strong mud banks to keep the water within their rice fields from draining out. Purport. Srila Prabhupada comments, in autumn, farmers save the water within the fields by building strong walls so that the water contained within the field cannot run out. There is hardly any hope for new rainfall. Therefore, they want to save whatever is in the field. Similarly, a person who is actually advanced in self-realization protects his energy by controlling the senses. It is advised that after the age of 50, one should retire from family life and conserve the energy of the body for utilization in the advancement of Krishna consciousness. Unless one is able to control the senses and engage them in the transcendental loving service of Mukunda, there is no possibility of salvation. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyadesh Tarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvishe Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So thank you again, dear devotees, for joining. And it was such a wonderful Gurvashtakam and Narasimha that you led. Thank you so much, Adi Purusha.
Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder.
I was feeling so much love when Prabhuji was chanting, and it was a pleasure to join him. Thank you. I seek blessings from all the present devotees so that I can speak something with humility and in line with the Guru Parampara. So this chapter is very nice. It is full of metaphors, analogies. So actually a very small portion of this chapter is it talks about the actual pastimes, but most of it is just metaphors like the ones we saw just now. So something that we can think is lessons are available in the nature around us. If we sincerely seek to find them, then nature reveals to us so many wonderful secrets. We know about the 24 gurus of Avadhut Brahman, which I think we are going to hear about tomorrow from Dinabandhu Prabhu. But yeah, so it is said that when we really want to seek wisdom, it is revealed to us by the Lord. So in 10:20:39, in the purport, it is written that the word Adishu indicates the byproducts of the body, such as children, home, and wealth. So this word Adishu actually comes in the Bhagavad Gita as well, in the 13th chapter. In 13th chapter, from verses 8 to 12, Krishna lists out qualities that he thinks are knowledge, according to him, that are knowledge. And it's interesting that the beginning one is amanitvam. Amanitvam is humility. So it's interesting to know that what Krishna considers as true knowledge actually begins with humility. So that's very revealing. And then one of the things that he says in that series of verses is asaktir anabhishvangha putra dara grihadishu. So he's saying detachment from byproducts of the body, like putra is children, son, dara is spouse, griha is home, and adishu, etc. Things like this. So Krishna is saying that one of the symptoms of one who is in true knowledge is a detachment from children, wife, home, etc. And then at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna says to Krishna, Nashto moho smritir labdhva tvat prasadan mayachyuta. Oh Krishna, by your mercy, my illusion is now gone and I've regained my memory. So we can safely assume that Arjuna has understood this point about detachment from family, home, children, wealth, etc. And then yet, when Abhimanyu dies in the battle, he's crying piteously. He's crying piteously, and he gets so angry that he vows to kill Jayadratha, who was one of the leading causes for the death of Abhimanyu before sunset that day. So it is interesting because on one hand, Arjuna is saying that, yes, Krishna, I have understood your instructions completely. And it's not that Arjuna is just throwing around words. It's not that, oh no, it's getting late for the battle. Okay, Krishna, I've understood everything. All good. Let's start the battle. No, he's actually very serious and he's contemplated on the message of Krishna. And then he's saying that I've understood. So how is it that Arjuna is falling into apparent illusion? So I tried to hear some answers by devotees like Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. And then the understanding is that spiritual progress doesn't have to negate human emotions. So spiritual progress means actually reaching out beyond human emotions, but not necessarily negating human emotions. As long as they are in line, anukulasya sankalpa, they are favorable to Krishna consciousness. And so these purports do not necessarily indicate that we have to immaturely give up family life and go to the forest. I have a little son. It's not that after reading this purport, when I go home today, when he looks at me and smiles, I'll say, no, you're illusion, man. You're I need to be detached from you. No, that is not the point. That is I have some natural affinity for my son, and I'll express that. So similarly, it's not that we have to just immaturely give up and go to the forest. In fact, many of us are not even capable of doing that, including me. Right. So the best way then is to dovetail our bodily connections in Krishna consciousness, to dovetail our family, for example, in Krishna consciousness. So rather than we can see our family members as objects for our own sense enjoyment. My wife, nice, come serve me, or I can say to my son, oh, my son, nice. I wanted to, graduate from Harvard Law. I could not do it. So you do it for me, you fulfill my wish. No, I don't use my bodily connections as objects of my own personal enjoyment, but I see them as children of Krishna given to me in my care. And that way we can see our horizontal relationships in this world in light of our vertical relationship with Krishna, with the Supreme Lord. And that way we can actually give up family attachment while being in family life. So I guess that's, and Prabhupada's purport on this particular Putradara Grihadishu is very illuminating in that purport of Bhagavad Gita 13.8 to 12. So you can go through it if you want to get into more details about it. So this egotism, right? This verse talks about egotism and possessiveness. I was listening to a class by Mahatma Prabhu. There he was mentioning how this false ego manifests itself. So it's like we have two stamps with us. One stamp says, this is mine. And the other stamp says, this is Krishna's. And then now whatever we see around us, if we are in a conditioned state, we will end up stamping it that this is mine. Okay, I see a new home, stamp it. This is mine. No, I'll try to get that home somehow. Yeah, I see a new car, stamp it. This is my car, right? Or I see my spouse, I stamp, this person is supposed to serve me, right? Or, I see prasadam laid out before me, I stamp it. This prasadam is for my pleasure. This is for my sense pleasure, the pleasure of my tongue, right? But if we look at advanced devotees, if we look at pure devotees, they actually end up using the other stamp on whatever they see. They see a new home, they stamp it. This is Krishna's home. And they try to make it Krishna's home by, they'll think, okay, this home can be converted into such a nice temple. And then they see a new car, stamp it. This is Krishna's. And how can this be Krishna's? You can serve devotees by, driving them somewhere. You can serve the great devotees who visit that place. They see the spouse, they stamp, this Krishna's. In the sense that they'll cultivate their spouse, try to cultivate their spouse in Krishna consciousness. So this way, they'll see prasadam laid out before them. They'll, stamp it. This is actually Krishna's mercy that is coming to me in a form that is so palatable to me. So this way they are grateful. The example of Madhavendra Puri is very apt in this case. So when Gopal ji, who was installed by Madhavendra Puri, it's a beautiful story. We can go into details some other time. Maybe many of you know it already. But Gopal ji was installed on the Govardhan hill by Madhavendra Puri. And at one point, Gopal he came in the dream of Madhavendra Puri and told him to go and get sandalwood for him because it was very a lot of heat and summer in the weather there. So then Madhavendra Puri started walking towards Jagannath Puri, and on the way he came to the temple of Gopinath ji. And when he saw the sweet rice being offered to Gopinath ji, he was so impressed that he wanted to taste the sweet rice. But it's not that he stamped it. No, this sweet rice is for my own pleasure of the tongue. No, he wanted to taste the sweet rice so that he can offer a similar sweet rice to Gopal. So this is the difference between somebody who is conditioned and a pure devotee. A pure devotee, whatever he sees that in relation with Krishna. So that way, we can learn from these pure devotees, from the example of these pure devotees. So this need to give up the false ego, possessiveness, as mentioned in the verse, does not necessitate with that we adopt a callous or a careless or an indifferent attitude towards the byproducts of our body. We can dovetail them in Krishna consciousness and not see them as objects for our own personal enjoyment. And then continuing this theme of false ego, the next verse talks about the Vedic mantras. And In the purport, it says that Vedic mantras could be chanted for n number of reasons, right? For 3 reasons given were sense gratification, or mystic powers or liberation, etc., material upliftment, promotion to heavenly planets, etc. So this way, when one is overcome by the false ego, we can even use the Vedic scriptures to fulfill the agenda of our false ego. And that is exactly what happens in the Vedic culture on so many levels. So in one sense, Vedic culture is extremely multifaceted. So whoever is at whatever level of spiritual evolution, there is something for them, definitely. And what we have, when I was contemplating on this, I could understand that whatever we have received by the mercy of Prabhupada, by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, is like the cream or the essence of all Vedic knowledge. It's like the essence, it's like the culmination of all Vedic knowledge. Nigama kalpatarur galitam phalam. This Bhagavatam is described as the ripened fruit of the Vedic knowledge. And in the Garud Puran, it says, Arthoyam Brahma Sutranam Bharat Artha Viniranayaha Gayatri Bhashya Ruposo Vedartha Paribrahmitaha. So the Bhagavatam is the purport of the Brahma Sutras or the Vedanta Sutra. It is the essential meaning of the Mahabharata. It is the essential conclusion of the Mahabharata. It is the essential purport of the Gayatri mantra. And it is the meaning, it is the expansion of the meaning, the actual meaning of all Vedic knowledge. Krishna says in the Gita that by all Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta and I am the knower of the Vedas. So Prabhupada has mercifully given us this Bhagavatam in such an accessible form that we have an opportunity to bypass all these intermediate levels of Vedic evolution and directly reach the ultimate and the highest culmination of all these processes. So in that sense, Prabhupada has given us that elevator by which we can directly go towards the lotus feet of Krishna. Of course, there is a big if that we need to do it sincerely. So growing up in India, I have personally been part of so many rituals and yagyas and so many ceremonies consisting of very precise pronunciations of mantras, elaborate rituals and yagyas, and everything done very meticulously, no mistake here and there. But all that done for what purpose? Getting some material prosperity, or liberation or moksha, or the impact of Shani on my life. Shani is one of the demigods who, gives us the bulk of our karma in one go, the bad karma. So that's why when usually people suffer, they think that it's Shani, the demigod Shani giving them their karma in bulk. So, some people might do some ritual to get that, impact of Shani reduced on them and things like that. But there is hardly any mention of, the ultimate goal of life, which is love of God or, things like that. So the Brahmanas in Vrindavan, when Krishna sent his Gopal friends to get food for them in Vrindavan, they went to these Brahmanas and they were engaged in performing these, yagyas and chanting these mantras, etc. And they were so engrossed in their Vedic rituals, their mantras, that they just ignored these Gopas. So Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam, the ultimate beneficiary of all your sacrifices is asking you directly for food, and then you're just ignoring, and then that's how distracted in one sense they were. And the ultimate purpose of any ritual, of any chanting of the Vedic mantras is twofold. What are these two purposes is mentioned in Padma Puran. Smartavya satatam Vishnu, vismartavya na jatuchit. So always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. So whatever Vedic rituals we do, they are meant to fulfill these two purposes. Always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. And if we do any ritual without this in mind, then we might get some temporary benefit out of it. But then it's not really, in the long run, it's not really so beneficial. So I remember when my father had passed away, the pujari who officiated the performance of all these last rites and rituals, etc., when he came for payment after everything was done, my brother, myself, and we started talking about the importance of doing all these rituals, this pindadan, offering oblations to the ancestors. So he was explaining to me how by offering these oblations, by doing these rituals, you're actually making sure that your ancestors are getting a good destination. Their journey in the netherworld is smoothened and things like that. And then I told him that, yeah, that's all good, very nice. And I'm happy to offer him oblations as a son, and I will definitely do it. But is there a way to completely get out of this cycle of birth and death? So I asked him that. I was curious what he had to say. And then he said, yes, there is a way. And I was surprised by his answer. So he said, the only way to get out of this whole cycle of birth and death is by bhakti. He used the two words bhakti and sadhana. I was very surprised. Wow. So this person who is, officiating, sorry?
They know.
Yeah, they know. In all these karmakandi rituals, he's saying that bhakti is the only way. And then, of course, he was trained in the Madhvacharya philosophy. And one of the tenets of Madhvacharya's philosophy is that mukti or liberation is achieved only through pure devotion, only through bhakti. So he told me that, and then I was impressed, and I was actually happy that what we study has been validated in one sense. This person, this pujari, he knew all the shastras, he studied them, he spoke about them, but then unfortunately the people around him, the families around him, like my family, we were so distracted by material pursuits that this point about the ultimate goal of life, being bhakti, never came up. Never in my life did this come up. I have done so many, I've been part of so many rituals, upanayanam, this, that. It's so that's of course, if one wants to really understand, then Krishna slowly reveals to us. So this kind of bhakti, which is actually covered by karma kand, is not something that Rupa Goswami defines as Uttama Bhakti, because Rupa Goswami defines Uttama Bhakti, or the topmost bhakti, as that which is not covered by jnana or karma. Jnana karmadya anavritam. So that is something we can understand through this. And then, so in this way, Vedic mantras can be chanted for so many reasons, right? But in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, Rupa Goswami writes, Bhukti Mukti Spriha Yavat Pishachi Ridhi Vartate Tavad Bhakti Sukhasyatra Katham Abhyudayo Bhavet. The material desire to enjoy the material world and the desire to become liberated from material bondage are considered to be two witches, and they haunt one like ghosts. Very strong words. As long as these witches remain within the heart, how can one feel transcendental bliss? As long as these two witches remain in the heart, there is no possibility of enjoying the transcendental bliss of devotional service. So very strong verse by Rupa Goswami, where he is rejecting, bhukti. Bhukti is sense gratification, and mukti is liberation from the material bondage. And the material bondage, in one sense, takes place because of the bhukti that we try to do, because of the sense gratification we try to do. And then at one point, we want liberation from all of that. So according to Rupa Goswami, that is not such a great thing. So the greatest thing is love of God, and we should be aspiring for that. And then finally, coming to verse 41, it is referring to how the yogis bring their senses under their control and not let them flow outwards. So in the second chapter of the Gita, 58th verse, Krishna says, Yada samharate chayam kurmo angani va sarvashaha. So he's again drawing a metaphor here, just like the kurma or the tortoise draws its limbs inside within its shell. Like that, a spiritual practitioner is supposed to withdraw his senses from the objects of sense gratification and fix oneself in that kind of consciousness. But then we might wonder, okay, I took my senses inside, I have withdrawn my senses, but what do I do with that? That Krishna answers 2-3 verses later in 2.61, where he says, Tani sarvani sanyamya yukta asita matparaha vashehi yasyendriyani tasya prajna pratishtita. So one who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control and fixes his consciousness upon me, is known as a man of steady intelligence. So thus Krishna doesn't talk about the need for sense control, but he also talks about the objective of sense control. And an interesting fact about this verse 2.61 is that in the entire Bhagavad Gita from the beginning, 2.61 is the verse where Krishna is directly referring to himself for the first time. So Krishna is saying, Tani sarvani sanyamya yukta asita mat paraha. So you restrain your senses and then you fix your consciousness upon me, mat paraha. So this is the first instance where Krishna is referring to himself and directly. So again, just controlling gross sense gratification is not enough, unfortunately. Sometimes even if we are able to control our gross senses, we might become, overcome by pride and what we term as subtle sense gratification, which consists of puja, labha, and pratishtha, which means profit, adoration, and distinction. Thinking things like, how many devotees are attending my Bhagavatam class today, or how many views did my YouTube video get, and when I walk through the door in the temple room, how many people are looking at me and offering obeisances. All these are indicators of a desire for subtle sense gratification, of a desire for profit, adoration, and distinction. So this also has to be given up, because you see, even Hiranyakashipu, when he performed his austerities to get all the wonderful boons that he got from Lord Shiva, he had completely controlled his senses on a gross level. So we know that he was standing in that posture for thousands of years, and to the extent that the ants near that, there was an anthill where he was standing in that position. The ants actually ate up all his half of his body, and then after this ghastly kind of austerity, Brahma thought, my God, look at this dude, he's going crazy, let me go and at least stop him. And that's how Brahma went and he gave him all the boons that we know of. But then he did all these austerities, but what was his inner motivation? So that was complete sense gratification and exploitation of others. So thus, although he had given up external sense enjoyment, so to say, he was completely overcome by it on a subtle level. And so in this way, even if we give up gross sense gratification, the false ego might force us into seeking subtle sense gratification. So we have to be really careful and guard against that. And then, but of course, Shastras not only talk about the problem, the Shastras also talk about the solution. So what is the way to be freed from all our tendency to enjoy our senses in a selfish way, or to get rid of all our designations, be freed from all our designations? That is mentioned in the Narada Pancharatra. The verse is, many of you might know, Sarvopadhi Vinirmuktam Tat Paratvena Nirmalam Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchyate. So we have developed so many upadhis. So one thing with the false ego, what happens is we end up developing so many designations, that I am a software engineer, I am I'm an Indian, I'm an American, I am a Bhagavatam class speaker, and things like that. We develop so many designations, but then and based on those designations, we have engaged our senses in a certain way. And but to be free from such designations and to purify our senses, the solution is to engage our senses in the senses in pleasing the senses of the Supreme Being, Shri Krishna. So again, this verse is very similar to Tani Sarvani Sanyamya in Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is saying, you control your senses, but then you fix them in my service. You fix them in consciousness of me. So similarly, if we want to really get freed from our designations and really purify our senses, we can Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam. So we can use our senses in the service of the Lord. When you come to a temple, when you get associated with devotees, that is something that happens by default. Immediately your senses are engaged. Your senses are, your hearing is engaged in hearing the kirtan, your eyes are engaged in looking at the deities of the Lord, and so on. And your nose is engaged in smelling the incense that is offered to the Lord, the flowers that are offered to the Lord, and the tongue is engaged in tasting the prasadam, and the skin, the sense of touch is engaged in meeting devotees, embracing devotees, or touching the feet of Prabhupada, and taking charanamrit and things like that. So in such sublime ways, when the senses are engaged, they will be gradually purified, and that way we can, get rid of all, be freed of all our designations or upadhis. And so this one last thing I have, so interesting thing. So there is one designation which is actually encouraged, for all devotees. And do you have any guesses as to what that designation is?
Das, das, anudas.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much. That is exactly what I was looking for. So that das, das, anudas being
or dasi, dasi, anudasi, right?
absolutely. So and that is being servant of the servant of the servant. So when Lord Chaitanya was in Jagannath Puri, he was attending the Rath Yatra and he was dancing ecstatically in front of Lord Jagannath. And that at that point, he composed a prayer. He composed a series of prayers. And one of the verses was, Naham Vipro, Nacha Narapatir, Napi Vaishyo, Na Shudro, Naham Varni, Nacha Grihapatir, No Vanastho Yatirva, Kintu Prodyan Nikila Paramananda Purnamritabdher, Gopi Bhartu Padakamalayor, Das, Das, Anudas. So Lord Chaitanya is here, he's saying, Naham Vipro, I am not a Brahmana, Nacha Narapatir, I am not a king, Napi Vaishyo, Na Shudro, I am neither a Vaishya nor a Shudra, Naham Varni, I am not a Brahmachari, Grihapatir, I am not a Grihastha, no Vanastho, I am not a Vanaprastha, Yatirva. Oh, hold on. This word yati actually means sannyasi. And Lord Chaitanya here is saying that he is not even a sannyasi. But we clearly know that Lord Chaitanya is a sannyasi. So what's exactly happening here is Lord Chaitanya trying to contradict himself. So definitely not. Because he ends the verse by saying Gopi Bhartu Padakamalaya or Das Das Anudas. So he is not contradicting himself, but he's putting his identity as the servant of the servant of the servant higher than that of being in any of the 4 varnas or ashramas or any other material designation in that sense. So from the life of Lord Chaitanya itself, we can learn that he took to the renounced order of life so that he could spread love of God in a more impactful way. And he could do it, more conducively to reach out to many people, because at that point of time, the people in renounced order were respected a lot. So in order to actually fulfill his constitutional duty in one sense, he took to this designation, this societal designation as a sannyasi. So thus he was clearly utilizing his designation as a sannyasi to further the mission of Krishna consciousness, which was his actual, constitutional identity. So of course, Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Lord himself, but then we know that he came to set an example of how a devotee is supposed to be. So the lesson for us is that, as much as possible, we can try to utilize our designations in this world in the service of Krishna. So that way we can do true justice to our conditional as well as our constitutional identities and organically attain pure love for Krishna. So we don't have to, the false ego is there, definitely. The false ego is there. But the false ego is false in the sense that it is not untrue. It is not an illusion in the true sense of the term, but it is false in the sense that it is temporary. And although it is temporary, it can definitely be used in the service of Krishna in some way or the other, as much as possible. Maybe not directly, but maybe by giving the fruits of our actions to the mission of Krishna consciousness, or, using our homes to host programs and things like that. Speaking about hosting programs, I don't host any as of now, but I really want to. I hope at some point I'll be able to do that. So that's all from me. Thank you very much, dear devotees. I seek forgiveness from all of you if I've spoken something wrong or something very lofty. I'm not perfect myself, and therefore I seek blessings from all of you and inspiration from all of you so that I can live according to what I speak. So Hare Krishna, thank you very much. I'll look at the comments. There are a few things in the comments. Not few, many things. What Krishna considers as true knowledge begins with humility, one of the symptoms. Okay, I think Anand Manjari Mataji is making some points. And then, so yes, Prithu is my son's name, so seeking blessings for him as well from all of you. And then false ego, yes, Vedic knowledge is yes, the only way to withdraw your senses. Yeah, thank you so much for making these points. Yes, Mataji, you have your hand raised. Anand Manjari Mataji.
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you so much for this wonderful class. It also brings me so much more happiness because we received initiation at the same time. So there's this closeness of the heart that I'm experiencing and hearing you. And yeah, all those notes are just the encapsulations of what I think I heard, and I hope I heard correctly. And I feel like there are just such beautiful points that you brought in this class. And one of the appreciations I want to share is actually how I'm feeling your point of renunciation and how it is so dangerous for us to try to renounce prematurely, because I feel like that's a recipe for a fall down in many aspects, and how also at times we can learn so much from engaging ourselves in service or trying to learn how to engage what we have in service of the Lord, instead of taking the other route, which may be actually a form of escapism, of trying to renounce prematurely when it's meant to be engaged. And especially the example that you gave about your family, I'm just feeling a lot of hope, and like that's I guess what Srila Prabhupada wanted, to have beautiful Krishna conscious families as examples for the society. So I really am grateful for that you are really exemplifying that, and you're at the very beginning of this journey. So thank you so much.
Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much. It's just mercy of devotees. Adipurush Prabhu, you want to?
Fantastic class. Thank you so much. Well, glories to Prabhupada. Your spiritual master is empowering you. And yeah, you're giving us a warning that even religion, some people want religion without God, religion without surrender, the kingdom of God without God, Ram Raj without Ram, it says. So we have to be very careful. So therefore, the relationship with the spiritual master is crucial. That we're actually not engaged in some religiosity for some selfish motivation, but we're actually trying to please, that there's love there. You know, without love, what's the use, you know? And love means you're trying to please someone else. So some people, there's one story in the Buddhist tradition that when Lord Buddha left, some of his disciples were going, thank God our guru is gone. Now we can just practice religion without him telling us, you have to do this, you can't do that. Now we can just practice religion without all these, you know, restrictions, you know. But actually the essential relationship in our approach to Krishna is to become obedient, reciprocating with the love the spiritual master is showing us by trying to please him. And sometimes we get the blessings of the spiritual master, we get the permission of the spiritual master, you know, sometimes even with these wedding ceremonies, get this blessing, or like, you know, you can pay so much and get your bicycle blessed or your car blessed, you know, blessing, but what about, like you're saying, what about service? The purpose of these things is to bring us to the point of pure love, of where you just want to please the spiritual master, and by pleasing the spiritual master, we please Krishna. So you're pointing that out, you know, that you can be so close and follow so many rules and have so many rituals, but forget why you're doing it and who you're doing it for. So the spiritual master relationship with the guru, I don't just want your blessings. Please give me your instruction. What would you like me to do? Where would you like me to go? Oh, glory to Srila Prabhupada. He showed us that. He followed his guru. The guru asked him to do, and he did what his guru asked him to do. And that made it perfect. Oh, glory to Prabhupada.
Yes. I just placed
Darshan time. Jagannath Gopal, there is no video.
Oh, there is no video? No, it's dark actually.
Dark. Okay.
So we'll be going from darkness to light now.
Yes, thank you for bringing us from darkness into light. Devotees, please turn the cameras on if you can. Okay. Jagannath Gopal Prabhu ki jai. Prithu Maharaj ki jai.
Thank you. Thank you so much, dear devotees. Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Great class. Hare Krishna. Okay, dear devotees, this is it. Thank you very much. It was nice seeing you. Thank you for coming. Like Jagannath Gopal Prabhu said, Bhakti is not there to reduce the influence of Shani in our life. Bhakti is there for us to fulfill our most fundamental need, the most fundamental desire, the desire to serve, the desire to give. And whether we're influenced by Shani or sun or whatever it may be, we will keep serving. Right, Jamuna Jaya? Will you keep serving despite Shani? Nice. Yes. This is a devotee.
Die. I'm about to go upstairs to the temple now.
Yeah, give him a big hug for us, okay? Jamuna
I
Jaya.
will.
Okay, would anyone else like to share, reflect? Before we go out into the world and put whatever we heard into practice. Bhima Prabhu is practicing bhakti with his horses. There's no limit to where you can practice. Yes. Okay. All right. We love you all. Hari Hari Bol. Come again tomorrow. Hare Krishna.